Welcome to You Can't Break Us, the podcast sharing real stories of parental alienation and family court injustice. I'm your host, Kaylin Hawkinson. Each episode, I sit down with brave guests who open up about their personal journeys, the pain, the resilience, and the fight for justice. These stories are raw, real, and powerful because speaking out is how we break the silence and remind the world, you can't break us. Hi, Mike. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you openly sharing your story. If you could get us started, just telling us where the alienation began and how that came about.
Sure. I think I've got a pretty typical story when you've got high conflict dissolution situations. I was on the receiving end of, certain allegations that then deem me unfit to parent my kids for a certain amount of time or to have those restrictions be imposed from the beginning. So I think at the beginning, I probably didn't see my kids for the better part of 2 months,
Okay.
based on all the hoops that I was jumping through to prove that the allegations weren't true.
Yeah.
Um, and then from there, it's just been a constant effort to increase. I've landed at 33% custody for several years now. Um, it's a good thing. I think my kids have good access. I did go back a little under a year ago to try and increase that, and oddly enough, it was the same old game. So I'm still, abusive and addicted, and all those things that unfortunately courts have to take seriously, I think. And then I wonder how much it gets sort of embellished and inflated because at
Right.
the end of the day, there's a lot of business behind court proceedings and lawyers and things like that. So it's interesting. I don't want to. I don't want to place too much blame or point too many fingers. I'll be careful about that. But I
Right.
think any of us that are going through that experience are, have been shocked at least once. Like, wait, what's going on here? This can't be right.
Yeah. All the
Yeah,
claims made, the false statements. So it sounds like she made a lot of statements against you to kind of try and paint you as this unfit father.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. We, I'll say it very plainly. Um, I think it was the best thing that we could have done, despite the ongoing conflict. I think it was the best thing we could have done for our kids because, yeah, I'll own my part. I was not presenting well at home in terms of my relationship with their mother. And that would have, at the end of the day, been worse than anything we might have faced thus far after a
Right.
divorce. And despite the alienation, which again, I think I read a lot of other people's stories and it breaks my heart. Despite my own frustrations, I know that I'm pretty fortunate. I know that I had enough financial stability and support and career. I had set myself up, and I see other people, and I'll say men. I think I'm partial to seeing those stories. Although I know it happens on both sides,
Yeah.
um, where I'll sit through court proceedings and sit in the galley as I'm waiting for my situation, and it's like, man, they've just destroyed you. Like you're done. And then we
Yeah.
wonder about single parent households and this idea of deadbeat dads, which again I know it is the case a percentage of the time. And then given my experience, I wonder, man, how many of those guys were beaten down, and
Right.
really didn't have a choice? Or how many of those women have been beaten down? And then all of a sudden you've got kids who feel abandoned by a parent. Even divorce brings about a sense of abandonment with one parent leaving the other. Those 2 months that I didn't see my kids at the very beginning of this whole thing, my daughter, well, that was 13 years ago now for her. And she'll harken back and she'll say, I remember that first day that we were going to get dropped off at your apartment. And I didn't remember what you looked like. And she says it
Oh.
very earnestly, like she's still three, and
Yeah.
I get that. I understand what she's saying. Her brother, like literally slept on the couch by the front door of my apartment for years. He wouldn't sleep in the room in his bed because
Okay.
he needed to make sure that if I was going to step out that door, he was somehow aware of it or was going to be able to stop me.
Oh.
Just those things that are super heartbreaking.
Clearly
That
you created trauma for them. They remember things like that.
Yeah, Yeah, uh, he'd probably hate that I'm talking about this. Um, but yeah, because he doesn't like to talk about it anymore. My daughter harkens back a little bit more. I think, he was a little bit older, so he had a different level of understanding of the situation. I
Yeah.
think he
Okay.
understood the conflict between his mom and I a lot more when he heard it. His temperament's always been that of a sort of a peacemaker, a people pleaser. So, I can remember now he'd go between us and, try to,
Oh,
again, those things that, yeah, that very much
yeah.
warranted the split of those two adults in high conflict. But by no means did my children then deserve to be alienated, to be removed
Right.
from access to their father. They were always
Right.
safe.
There's
There was
no
never,
warrant for that. Yeah.
other than dealing with these allegations, I'll give the court, credit in terms of ensuring that there's that safety. And then again, I have to be very skeptical about what the other motives are with
Yeah.
that financially, politically, or otherwise. It's a $50 billion a year industry, family law. I think maybe drug trafficking and pornography match that kind of revenue. Like that's about it. Those are things that are pretty evil vices.
Right.
To be comparing family law or the idea that we're doing it for the kids or the children, that loses a lot of credibility pretty
Yeah.
quickly once you're in
It
that system.
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't feel that way when you've experienced it the way you have. It doesn't look that way then.
It doesn't, and I think that people appeal to the system for protection, and I think that the system
Hmm.
intends to provide that. And then inevitably, the system's just sort of built in a punitive way. So all of a sudden, you're getting divorced, and it's not a crime, but you're a criminal in some way. At least I certainly felt that
Yeah.
way, and I was treated that way in
Yeah.
terms of losing my kids, losing access to me. All the things I'm now having to pay. I'm out of my house. I don't have any of my belongings. Yeah, the alienation, really starts there. Like
Yeah.
I got crushed. And the only reason I'm standing is that I had set myself up well enough, decently well. I, lost it all, like most people do, or a lot of people do in these situations. And luckily, I've got
Yeah.
strong family support. And then after a few years, found a strong partner who was interested in helping, and she's seen so much in terms of the conflict and how it really goes. And then she's got to sit in court and hear the other account, which unfortunately prevails almost
Yeah.
without fail. I mean, I've got the victories I've had in
Wow.
increasing my custody. I don't want to diminish those because I was very proud to have overcome that presumption of guilt. And then, like I
Hmm.
said, over the past year, I went back and I'm like, oh yeah, we're good. I mean, I even sat there, kind of kicked back at the court mediator's office for the child custody piece and saying, yeah, you know what, I know how this. I've been around the block. I know how this game works. I'm not going to sit here and trash my ex-wife in order
Hmm.
for me to seem like a more fit parent because I know that's the game here. So let's not play
Yeah.
that game. All right, she's a great mom. She's awesome. We don't agree as people. Our kids are doing fine. I've increased the last time 33%. I've been there a little while. We're doing some child support modifications, so I'm here to, rightfully so, request more time.
Yeah.
My ex went in there and trashed me, and they
So,
listened. Yeah,
mm, so
yep,
it sounds like the divorce is really what had her start alienating you, I guess, from the children, or try
immediately.
to use it that way
Hmm.
in court and keep you away from them.
Immediately from day one,
Okay.
from the day that they went to a family wedding, and I stayed back because we were just not in good shape, and there was no way we were going to bring that turmoil to the family wedding. And literally, she changed the flight times, took my kids a lot earlier than I expected, so I didn't get to see them. And then I got served like 30
Oh,
minutes after they left. And I
wow.
had
Okay.
paperwork now telling me that I was going to have to leave the home. The usual spiel. And if you don't leave the home, you'll be removed, and all the threats. And now I had been jockeyed out of position. Now I lost my home. I was going to lose my part of the community business for sure. I lost access to my kids. The usual story. You've probably heard this a million times. Yeah,
Well, and it's so
unfortunately.
sad to know that. And how did you feel with any false accusations she was making? How did you feel the court handled that then? Is it like they just believed it with no evidence? They didn't even
Absolutely
do an investigation, try to ask for
zero.
evidence. It's just
Zero.
she's
Like I
saying
said, I was
this.
literally working the community business that we had just started recently, and
Hmm.
I was providing treatment, behavioral treatment, medically based behavioral treatment to clients for our business that were the same age as my children. So I was
Hmm.
safe for that part of it, but not safe for my kids. That
And they
was
didn't even question
infuriating.
that.
It was
Yeah.
infuriating. Oh, and then when I went to court and said, well, I guess I'm going to have to make sure that the other party is the one doing all the direct work because I'm not safe to be with kids, right? As per the court. Oh,
Yeah.
now I'm threatening to take away the revenue and the income. So now I'm further violating my responsibilities. It's like, wow, you guys can't you can have it both ways. I can be this abuser, drug addicted, all these things that got me kicked out of my home, but I can still provide this medical service so that we can make money. All right,
It just, yeah, it makes no sense. You can work with children,
absolutely not.
you're safe, and yet the mother
Yeah.
is saying all these horrible things that you're not safe with your own children. Oh, but you're safe to work with other children. And then the court is doing nothing to question that or ask for evidence or investigate, nothing.
I mean, and the evidence is there, right? So is he providing services to children of the same age? That means he's providing care. The parents are observing. He's deemed safe by them. Have there been any complaints? Any of that?
Yeah.
Investigate. They don't care. They don't care.
Wow.
They've done their job. Now the kids are protected. The kids are protected from that guy, who's clearly going to harm them based on this person's allegations, despite no history of anything. I mean, history of
Wow.
nothing. I had never been to jail until the divorce proceedings, and I ended up finding myself on the Saturday morning roundup, which I didn't know was a thing until I was sitting in the Saturday morning roundup.
Oh,
And then, there was another situation where I found out that some of my bank mail that was still going to the home um, was being compiled by the other party to use against me. And I was like, so I went and picked it up, and uh, altercation
wow.
proceeded. And I was, I was placed at fault and taken in. Had
Wow.
never done, I'd never faced any of that. Never, caught with substances or under the influence, but nothing. Clean, crystal clear record.
Yeah.
Um, and
And
ended up,
you
yeah,
don't just expect something like this to happen. You don't think someone is doing these things against you. It's just not natural or normal. So it's hard to even think that
yeah,
sometimes like this person will end up doing that to me.
yeah, yeah. And then you get really mad, and then you yell because you're mad, and somebody's come and threatening you, and you fit the allegations now. It's a
Right.
really interesting game. It's like, let me provoke you, provoke you, provoke you, and then when you growl, you see how he is. I mean,
Right.
it's been again. I don't. I went through a lot of anger where it was a lot of placing blame on other parties on the system, and I can certainly still look at some of those things. But it's remarkable to me some of the statistics, right? So I think in California, it's like upwards of 70% of any active dissolution proceeding has a temporary restraining order.
Oh, okay.
Um, so that's immediately something that's going to alienate a parent from
Yeah.
their children in some way or another. And it's just I have to marvel at that. It's like, wow, why is that? And if we know
Yeah.
that, why is nothing else being done to actually investigate that? We're saying that three out of
Right.
four men in those situations are apt to maybe murder their partner. That's a huge societal problem. It's interesting how quietly we're keeping it, although we're promoting that and perpetuating that, and then at the end of the day, there's children in the middle that now end up being, as part of the alienation process here. Yeah.
Yeah. I have seen, restraining orders, it feels like it takes nothing to do that. You can go in and say anything you want and, oh, restraining order on that person. And yes, that can
Yeah.
create alienation. I went through that where they illegally kept my son on a visit the first time they did that, and they acted like I abandoned him and went in and said all these false things and got a restraining order while I
Yeah.
had custody. And so then he wasn't sent back, and that blew my mind. I mean, it just all the things they can do to play the systems, and it's a long process, so it's like they know it's going to be a long process, and that gives them that
Yeah.
time to alienate and keep the child from you and
Yep.
build up more false narratives. It's horrible.
They set out a whole bunch of hoops that that I had to jump through. The typical menu, the anger management classes. I had the randomized, supervised urine tests, drug screenings. Those are fun. That makes you feel like a real upstanding individual to be standing in the corner while somebody watches you pee.
Hmm.
I did it all. I, literally at that time, now paying a rent here where we live, which is very expensive, paying my rent, paying half of the mortgage still, my obligations, being flat broke, those things cost money. Drug screenings cost
Yeah,
money. And so I got criticized. I even got criticized there. It took you 2 months to try to see your kids again. It's like it took me 2 months to jump through all your hoops. So it didn't
hmm,
matter what I did. I was always behind the eight ball. I was always lagging behind somewhere per their expectations. Go do 30
yeah,
AA meetings and get signatures. Okay, that's going to take 30 days. Or the idea that I'm going to take, I don't know, 6 days in a row off work and do 5 meetings a day just to jump through your hoop. Like,
right.
this
And
is
you
all
have to
time
pay
that
for it.
you have to
Yeah,
pay for all of it.
and it's
All
on
of it.
you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
And
I mean,
it,
there's enough cases that they don't investigate, they don't ask for evidence, they don't see any cause to what is happening or these false claims, but yet it's like they're checking off boxes. Okay, well, you need to go do this, you need to go do this, and check off all these boxes, and you have to pay
yeah,
for it all yourself when there's no warrant for it. There's nothing to back it up.
nothing at all. I mean, and I don't know, a simple record check, like, wow, this is happening. He doesn't have a record for DUI, or he's never been caught with substances, or,
Right.
clearly you're within limits somewhere, you've maintained your privacy, if not your upstanding, nature, and doing the right thing, and protecting your kids. But yeah, one false claim. And again, I get it. The idea is protecting the kids. The irony is then by alienating one parent, you're doing the worst thing you could do
Yeah.
to kids. And then, politically, we get to hear the same story with the single parent household crisis. It's like, well, we created that. All of us did that, like,
Yeah.
and it keeps happening over and over. And again, nobody seems to ask why. Wait, something's got to be wrong here. And
Right.
the idea that, is it really single parent? Like, I hate to open up this can of worms, but even that discussion with uh, the other party in kind of the whole going through the whole notion of touting herself as a single mom, and it's like, okay, I don't want to get into the semantics here. You're a single woman. You're a divorced mom. You have the children by choice, by forced choice, more than I do. You impose that disparity to then, to then promote this plight of the single
Right.
mom.
Well, and
Again, I don't want to
it's
be
the way
disrespectful.
they No, and
Yeah, it's like,
it's not
what about me?
disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
both
because I know there's a lot
sides,
of women who
obviously.
who are on their own, though. That's what I'm trying to say. And there are a lot of
Yeah,
parents. There's plenty of dads who are truly single. They're not
right.
getting consistent child support. The health insurance premiums paid by the other party. All the things that I have done consistently as soon as I was getting back on my feet.
Yeah.
And
No,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I get what you're saying. It's the way she presented it, though. There's a difference than, you know, someone who is intentionally harmfully doing things. That's different compared to being in a normal situation of doing your best and trying here. So I definitely understand that aspect to it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's and again, at the end of the day, it's two adults in high conflict, and you've got these precious little beings in the middle who deserve both. And it goes on and on and on. I mean, I guess one thing I don't, maybe I just haven't read enough, but I don't hear people talking about in terms of alienation, especially when you're the non-custodial parent. And I think a lot of people talk about much more severe alienation where they're not seeing their kids. And again, this is where I do consider myself very fortunate in my journey. Yeah, yes, it's been hard, but I see other people's stories. I've got these little funny things to complain about, like, and I don't mean funny, humorous as much as odd. The non-custodial parent, and how many parents out there are going to relate with the idea that I can't buy anything cool in my household because they're going to want to have it, clothes, musical instruments, anything, and I want them to have it, and the majority of the time they're at their mom. So
Mhm.
I get something cool here, it goes over there, and it never comes back. There was a time
Exactly.
where I
Yeah.
had to sit with my kids and go, "Hey guys, we, short of inspecting your bags and taking stock, I need your help because, let me open my daughter's closet. This is looks as though I don't buy you any clothes." And that's not
Hmm.
true. In fact, we just got
Right.
back from family at Christmas time, and everybody bought you clothes. There was 5 pairs of pants and 12 sweaters, and where are they? Oh, it's because I took her to my mom's.
Right.
Oh man,
You
you
know,
know.
I understand that. I would always I've, been alienated off and on over the years. I've seen my child off and on though when a whole other story of, him playing his own rules of allowing it, not abiding
Hmm.
by the order, so forth. But I would always make sure he had clothes, things. I would send things back. I would send things, whatever. And we would see that they would mock it, they would make fun of it, and they would give it to
Mm,
other siblings and still twist it and paint this story as if, like, I'm not in his life, I'm not doing anything for him. But then as he got a little older, um, it then shifted to where they weren't providing for him, and this was evidenced, I mean, over time from the other moms to his other kids who were old enough to say things, all kinds of things. So I was providing, like, everything for him and, his clothes, whatever, and so they're able to twist that and act like you're
yeah.
the one not providing, you're the one not doing, but those are all my stuff. I did that. I provided that. It's I
Uh,
understand what you're saying with scenarios
It's
like
so
that.
crazy, and it's everything, right? I mean, um, my son's a rather skilled musician, and some of the, I'm going to sound petty here, but I know some of the best guitars I've purchased him, are decorating his room in his mom's house, and it's like, okay, it's your, at the end of the day, yes, it's your guitar.
Mhm.
Um, and again, I'm being petty. Why does it have to, you know,
Well,
decorate? Why can't it be in your room at my house? Oh, because you want to have it accessible the majority of the time, and you spend the majority of the time. Okay, okay. What are you gonna do?
yeah.
I made many mistakes with that. I probably expressed way too much frustration that they noticed that was palpable for them based on that. Uh, Hair products, face cleansing products. I finally started saying, I need you guys to stop walking into these with these suitcases, like this is a hotel that you come to every, you know, 14 days or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Um,
you want it to be another home.
Home.
You want it to look like another home for
Yeah.
them.
Yep.
As my
Yeah.
son got a little older, I would ask, when he was of age to kind of make a decision, do you want to keep this here? Do you want to take it with? So I would give him choices.
Mm.
But then when his dad, the current stepmom he has now, had children of her own already, that
Mm.
they had children. So overall there's like 8, 9 kids now. And so at that extent,
Wow.
his things, and it was intentional, we
They
knew,
just get,
because
yeah,
they would destroy it. And they would
yeah,
give it to the other kids and intentionally destroy it to like upset him or whatever. And twist the scenario that it's, it's from me, so it's my fault, whatever. But so then I didn't want to send anything there because it's like I'm spending all this money and you're destroying only
right,
my things from
yeah.
me intentionally. And
And then that,
then
yeah,
they're
now
able
you're
to
wishing
paint
for your
it.
kid. Yep.
Yeah, and then they're able to twist that and be like, "Oh, look, the mom's not providing anything." And it's like,
Oh man,
no matter what you do, they're able
yeah.
to twist every little thing against you and make you seem unfit, it seems like.
I went through a phase, and there's probably more that I could do, and I thought my kids would be really happy about it. I think it was odd for them. I'm not sure how I'm going to explain this, but like I went, with personal like care products. Um, Finally went through their stuff and said, okay, this is the stuff you guys need. All right, we're going to order all of it new for you here. I don't
Mhm.
need you to be bringing this back and forth. And I don't know for what reasons, but it was really hard for them to understand that. They'd gotten used to this, routine. I mean, it
Mhm.
got to the point where my son was like, got into like bar soap or something. And I was like, there's a lot of, it's kind of trendy right now. And I got him a couple bars, and then I went into the bathroom and noticed that they were gone. And it's like, "Oh, no, dude, like, so at that point in time, I was like, look, I bought you two, leave one here. Sure.
Mhm.
Take the other one over there. And they were also kind of sheepish about that. It's like, wow, you're sending something over there. I'm like, it's not my preference. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm doing it to gritted teeth. I know it's a $4 bar of soap, but even though it kind of stings right now
Well,
because,
and
the whole
even
circumstance.
well,
Yeah.
even court orders usually have that general language of, you keep your things at each other's home, so
Yeah.
each is a home for the child, and they don't need to lug around things. But I have my case and other cases I know of where, the other parent tries to kind of twist that and
Yeah.
get your things and then paint you as if you're not providing because you're not sending your things, even though you're not even supposed to. You're supposed to have
Right.
actual homes with things for the children.
Well, and so the other things, little things that happen with this high conflict kind of stuff, um, I stopped trying to say, hey, this and that is missing here at this home. Did you take it over there? I was like, you know what? I'm just going to work really hard at making sure that things stay here. And then if they don't, we'll have to figure it out later because that's creating a lot of conflict. But I get calls from the other party like, hey, there's a spoon from a lunchbox. And I'm like, seriously? Like, yeah, I'll look for it. Sure. Yep, there it is. Let me make sure it's sent back because I am sure that you are taking stock of all the things that aren't part of your household and sending them back here. No, you're not. You're just integrating them into your household, enriching their environment there. It's like I pay half the child support. I pay all my expenses here. I pay half the expenses for the kids there. And now stuff is going over there. Okay. I mean,
Mhm.
again, short of just trying to take stock here with my kids at home and say, this you don't have to lug this back and forth. I feel pretty good. We've gone from a literal suitcase that they would lug back and forth to like a backpack, and I'm okay with that
Mhm.
now. My daughter
Yeah.
was like, I'm actually I want to replace your whole makeup bag, and she's like, nope, I'm going to draw the line there because
Uh,
there's things here that I don't want you to replace that can't be replaced. This is my I was like, okay, I understand. And then my wife was like, yeah, you can't duplicate makeup bags. There's only one makeup bag.
mhm.
So I'm like,
And
okay, I won't try to do that. But yeah,
I want to mention too, like you were saying, the example of the spoon, that can be a normal, any co-parent situation, but for someone who is dealing with either like a narcissist personality, a parent who intentionally alienates, does things, it creates a whole different type of situation. It's not
yeah,
normal because oh my gosh, even one little spoon, this is going to blow up. She's going to twist it into this whole thing, paint me as this horrible
yeah,
parent, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing something horrible when it is literally a spoon. It's a normal situation that happens. But it sucks because we always have to then be on guard knowing how they operate. And
yeah.
that's not normal.
That's a fantastic point you're making. Man, let's echo that 10 times because you're absolutely right. And I guess what's even a little more confounding in my situation is we've had those moments in the recent past. It's not like the past 13 years have just been all conflict. So I know that there can be a collaboration, that those simple spoon moments could and have been easily resolved at some point, maybe about 60% of the time.
Hmm.
But to your greater point, I think the other 40% of the time, and maybe it's me, I'll own that. I feel like I'm getting poked on something. Something's gonna be poking me. There's some little allegation, snide remark here or there. Something that's now historically, based that's going to be trouble. Even just the way the communication comes in. The idea that I have to pay all the half of all the expenses, the necessary expenses. So all of a sudden, I'm getting these random bills. Oh, you owe me this much for this much. Here's a spreadsheet of all the things you owe me, and it's like we didn't talk about any of these
Yeah.
things. Like if our kid
Yeah.
needs a backpack, I just buy a backpack, and again, so and if it was a more normal, equitable situation, if we want to go 50-50, how come I only have 30% custody?
Right.
So all these things that it's always like this, I think it's kind of, to your point, it's always this effort to kind of just have the knee on my neck a little bit, even if
Hmm.
it's softly, it needs to be there. I need to be held beneath. And
Hmm.
that's the most frustrating, infuriating part of this alienation process for me
Yeah.
is feeling lesser, feeling like my kids are made to see me as less.
Right.
That's really hard.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And I think another point to that is just the simple point that people who haven't been through court or in these situations may not think about it because it's not happening to them, but maybe, people usually think, "Oh, well, the court is over. It's resolved. They're fine." With alienators, with people who have these traits, it is never over. It is
Yeah.
always happening. They're always, it's like plotting, planning, every little scenario. So it never feels over.
I without saying too much, I
Right.
am living proof of that right
Hmm.
now. I to speak as safely as I can, just because there are other parties out there.
Yeah.
Um, I went back almost a year ago just for a child support modification. I did. There were some other little pieces that were needed to be addressed. Again, I'm being a little cryptic on purpose. It was a simple case as far as I thought.
Hmm.
I might be in court next Friday. We'll see.
Never,
There's
never
discussions
ends up
about trying to
simple.
settle that.
Yeah.
It's been 13 years. What's the joke? People say love is forever. Divorce is forever. In my case, the love ended. This divorce doesn't seem to go away.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but as I was preparing and we made contact on social media and I got to see a little bit of your stuff and I read a lot um, of the feeds. The algorithm knows the stuff I'm looking up, so it feeds me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just so interesting to think about the audience that you're reaching. So number one, thank you for setting up this platform. I think that this
Yeah, of
needs to be
course.
done. I think more of this needs to be out there so
Yeah,
people
I
can
do
talk.
too.
And then I think about the audience. Like we're almost like, how do we get this information not to the people that are already in it, but how do
Hmm.
we help you get this information to the people who haven't stepped into this muck yet, so that they
Yeah.
can avoid it
Hmm.
I mean, to the best of their ability, try to
Well,
avoid this situation.
yeah, I think of that too. I would love, obviously, this platform is for parents who have experienced it, court injustices, to kind of build this community and support for one another, as well as hopefully spreading knowledge to those who aren't aware. Because yes, we want future generations, we want this knowledge out there. We don't want it to keep happening for future generations. And then I also think of all the times the other party is saying these stories, fabricating things, and just thinking. So, a quick scenario, I guess. It's
Mhm.
kind of explained in my book, but a quick scenario when I was at a hospital in the waiting room waiting for my son, his dad was there telling this story to this random woman in the waiting room. And I know she doesn't know us. She doesn't know him. Someone's not gonna, I get that. But thinking of
Yeah.
someone you know, if they can fabricate this story about you, and I was right there, I heard it, and I didn't say anything. I'm just sitting there. But to think all the stories that are fabricated over the years, all these lies,
Yeah.
and people aren't aware though or knowledgeable to sometimes point out if you more so if you know that person, I think, and you see a pattern, you see it
Yeah.
happening over the years, it'd be great that people can actually be knowledgeable and point out these signs that something is not right. That child needs help, or that scenario is not correct. They are lying. I wish some more knowledge was out there that even in everyday scenarios, people can start to kind of think, oh, I've heard of this before. I know these scenarios, these signs. Something is off with that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that alone can help spread.
I love that you're saying that. I think it's because this information becoming more available maybe makes people feel more comfortable
Hmm.
confronting those situations. Inevitably, what ends up happening to most of us is you get split camps. You keep
Yeah.
those friends over there, you kept our friends, and then the stories perpetuate on some side or the other. I think about so the allegations were made in the beginning. The jockeying for position was done. She won in my situation, right? And then I was working my way back up. Now, when I'm working my way back up, unfortunately, what that starts to do is it starts to erode at this narrative of this beast that I was. So now people start seeing me out
Hmm.
and, hey, man, you look great. Yeah. What did you think? What did you think I was going to be like, ragged and no teeth and all the stories you heard? Yeah,
Right.
no, look,
Right.
I'm looking good.
Druggy.
Looking good,
Yeah.
baby. Yep, I'm good. Yeah, I went through some tough times. I went through some hard times. Yep, I got my apartment up there now, and yep, come on by and see me. And it's like, yeah, these stories are being perpetuated. Well, as people begin to prove that what was alleged isn't true, well, the party that made the allegations now becomes a liar by definition. That can be really hard for parties that who had a really strong narrative that then got disproven. That can be really hard. And that gets people really angry. And
Yeah.
then more stories come out, or those jabs that, like in your situation, you know, you want to be amicable, you're in the same room, and then they start talking about things, and it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
What do I do? Like, do I correct you? No, because then all of a sudden I'm arguing with you. And so I have to
Yeah.
just sit here and
Take it.
know
And
that
they
you're
know
full of it.
that.
Oh, no,
Hmm.
they totally know that. And then if they're doing it in front of your face, what are they doing when you're not around? And the other part is, if,
Exactly.
if we're divorced, why are you so interested in poking at me? Why are
Yeah.
you so interested in damaging me, in demeaning me? What is
You
your
know,
motive? I'm remarried. I have another child.
mhm.
What's going on? Like,
Do you know how many times I've been asked that? That is a very common question, at least in my case. People, and it's very odd for me. It's not even hidden. I have had clear evidence. He even acts out in court cases. His behavior clearly shows the way his messages, his language. It's not even hidden who he is being a
oh,
narcissist, but yet somehow courts in my cases have not upheld to, sorry, but the law, because he has
yeah,
illegally taken my son multiple times and then nothing was done about it. But I just it's hard because one of the common questions, even outside of court, he does all these things continuously, just jabbing,
mm,
jabbing, trying to make me seem horrible. And I always felt silenced because he's so loud, right? They're so
mm,
loud that you feel so silenced, like you can't defend yourself, you can't overcome this. What, I'm stuck. But people are always like, why does he do that? Why does someone act that way? Why does someone continue for years to just he has your child. He illegally, multiple times, he has him, he kept him, he got away with it. What more why is he trying to hurt you all the time, literally all the time? And
yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
I just through therapy and learning, being knowledgeable, I know it's narcissistic personality disorder, what therapists have taught me, what I've
Yeah.
learned, but um it's just the traits, like they never stop. You're the target. They are not the child's best interest. That is not their interest. It is you
Yeah.
controlling power, taking you down.
It's I have to chuckle only because it's baffling. It's like
Hmm.
there's again the best way I can say it. I think I've alluded to this a couple times, but it's and I'll use the word stupid. It's two stupid, furious adults, you know, and 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 that's how it starts. And then even if one of us backs off in this situation, you're still getting clobbered. And
Yeah.
and to your point, I can't say anything because if I do, I'm going to play right into the allegations, even just by defending myself, even
Hmm.
just by speaking up. It's been on
Right.
text, Hey, you need to do this and this. Actually, I'm not going to. This is what the court order says. Blah. I can't believe you're being so aggressive. It's like, and now this is on text,
Yeah.
and now all she has to do is put it into the court, and now I'm back in. Sir, did you have a domestic violence arrest? And yeah, it actually got thrown out. It should. I'm not even sure why you guys are bringing it up. It's not even on my record, other than it's on that sheet. But I it never made the district attorney. The second time, the police actually made it reduce it to a detainment, but you guys are still bringing it up, and it got used to
Hmm.
put a restraining order on me. The restraining order didn't say anything about where I get to see my or about my kids because my kids were still visiting me. Didn't say anything about their school. So I started volunteering at their school at lunchtime. One day, very nice gentleman who would help me there came up to me and said, "I'm so sorry, I can't let you in. Your Their mother let us know that you have a restraining order." I said, "Let's look at the paperwork. Where does it say I can't be at their school?" And somebody on their board said, "It doesn't matter whether it says school or not. We just can't have an individual like this on the campus."
Wow. They find every little avenue,
Every
I
little
feel
thing to
like.
just poke and push down and demean. Every little
Yeah.
thing. But I'm allowed to be
I
here
don't,
during functions, school functions. Why can't I be here during? It didn't matter. She'd already gone and talked to her people and made her case and made the allegations and the stories. And now I was this beast. I can't. I remember that gentleman. I still see him. He's part of my community. Really nice man. Uh, that didn't change anything between us. I knew he was just the messenger,
yeah.
but I just remember his face, and he just had this like, "Oh man, I can't believe I have to do this to you, but I have no
Yeah.
choice." And
Hmm.
speaking to what you were talking about in terms of people's comfort or the idea that he could have, or maybe he did, I don't know. Maybe he called it out and said, "Wait a minute, no, I know Mike. No, he's great. He's
Yeah.
great with all the kids. He plays. He's awesome." Didn't matter at that point in time. All he could do was
Well,
enforce.
and the fact I feel like they create a lot of embarrassing situations
Oh
to
my
on
God.
you, like on us, like putting us in the embarrassing situation, trying to make it bad on us when we didn't do anything to deserve that. We did nothing for to warrant what is happening. I don't know about you, but a typical thing that happens to me is him weaponizing medical. Have you experienced that at all where she tries to distort or weaponize medical? I even recently, just a week or two ago, had a provider who he was trying not to let me know about, switching a provider to do something,
Interesting.
um, which I have the right, the court order. Everything
Yeah.
shows I have these rights. You can't
Yeah. Yeah.
exclude me
For
or
sure.
whatever. But some people, with us, it is two different states involved. There is another level to that. So sometimes there can be someone who's misinformed or not as
Yeah.
knowledgeable about how that operates because they're licensed in one state, you live in another.
Yep.
They're not really understand. But that provider didn't, which I commend him. He spent time on a phone call to understand what I meant, and not everyone does that. And he
Yeah.
asked questions, but he was not knowledgeable on this type of dynamic and said, like, he didn't know how medical could be weaponized. How does that happen? What do they do? And I thought, oh man, like he has done this so many times to me over the years. And to hear how providers
Yeah.
don't think of that, not to put down providers, but I mean, it's just not something that's a normal situation you would think of, right? So they don't
Yep.
know that this child is coming in here as like a ploy or a setup to, first of all, to have me excluded is a red flag,
Mhm.
doing whatever he can to exclude me. Second of all, that can give them this leeway to talk to the provider. And I said, you're a mandated reporter, right? Yes. So if something's reported,
Yep.
or red
Yep.
flag, do you have to report it? Yes. So if he comes in and we've already proven he coaches my son, we've already proven this
Uh,
in court. So if you exclude me, and he has a right to talk to you and make any statement he wants about me, and then coach my son, have him come in and say these,
mhm.
whatever statements, you have to report it. Well, yeah, that's how they weaponize medical, because you are
Yeah.
excluding me, and he can take full control and try to paint me as this horrible parent. And he's done it before, made false reports to DHS, a whole thing. So I don't know if you've experienced things like that, but it is constant.
Luckily, not to that extent. I think the exclusion part is there, and it can be a little frustrating, but it's not, quite the challenge that you're facing, the way you're explaining it, because um, the insurance premiums for medical for both kids are paid out of my household income. Um, I do get sometimes notices of things that I didn't know about. I'm not so. I think
Mhm.
my kids. Um, well, I was gonna say they might be past a coaching phase, but that may not be true. I think it's happened recently. But I don't worry so much about that particular thing. What you just described chills me. Like that is the fact that you have to fear that's a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, even
Man.
every little thing that people in normal, even just parents who are together with their children, even a normal co-parent relationship, like these aren't things you would think of because that's not happening to you, that you don't really think of these things happening. But
Yeah.
there's so many cases out there where it is, and it's like this other parent. And I just, speaking of co-parenting, I just want to bring out the term counter parent, because that was something
Mhm.
I was telling the provider. He said, well, he kept mentioning co-parent, and I said, well, respectfully, I want to mention counter parent, because this is not a co-parent. And it would just be great that more providers maybe can get knowledge and realize that, because there truly are counter parent relationships and not co-parent. There's a big difference where one parent is intentionally always
Yeah.
trying to diminish the other parent, alienate, do things to the other parent. So it's a whole different dynamic.
It's interesting in terms of medical services. I'm in that business, and um, you bring up an interesting point. It's common enough that in a pediatrician's office, for example, it should maybe be a question like, "What's your family dynamic? Are parents divorced or married? Do
Mhm.
you cohabitate?" Because otherwise, that information might get missed. And I know that in my situation, because I'm doing services that are provided in home, behavioral services, it's a lot easier for me to figure that out. And then I almost, I can thrive in those situations given my personal experience. I
Mm, yeah.
can very easily just kind of talk to both parents and go, "Hey, I need you both involved here." And I can very
Hmm.
easily call one parent or the other out and say, "Hey, I feel like you're not really wanting to be involved. Like I'm not gonna chastise you for it as much as I also don't want to bother you about it. And then at the end of the day, unfortunately, if one or the other of you wants me to make some statement in court, I'm gonna have to be honest about who's
Yeah.
done what. So
Yeah.
I'm reaching out to you to work with me. Work with me. If you don't have
Yeah.
time, that's fine. Do a phone call once a week, so I'll tell you how services are going. Do yourself
Yeah.
a favor in court as opposed to putting me in a position where I'm going to be strictly honest and you're going to look bad, because I don't want to do
Mhm.
that to any parent. But I'm also not going to lie. If one parent's been
Right.
wholeheartedly participating and the other one has been standoffish or just passe, I have to say that. And it's going to be on the dates. On this date, this parent participated and these two, and then, it's going to be clear. So do yourself a favor.
Mhm.
Let me help you. I've had situations where, um, there's legal custody, but some sort of restriction. It's like, I'm going to call you. I want you to know what's happening because that's important to your child. And
Hmm.
you know, I might have one or the other parent saying, "No, don't involve them," and it's like, sorry, you can't tell me not to, because
Yeah.
that just wouldn't be ethical given the service I'm providing and given the legal circumstances. If they're a legal custodian, yes, they have access. Yeah, they need to know what's happening. You know,
Yeah.
I'll go as far as having to do services in each household if that's what you guys want to do, because that would be best.
Yeah.
So you know, it's important. I think, yeah, I think it's an important issue you bring up that while it might take extra time and might lead to some discomfort and whatever the situation is, it probably would prepare providers a lot more in saying, "Oh, okay, so dad doesn't live at home. Okay, does he is he aware of this visit today? Okay, if he's not, then by the end of this, based on what I've discovered, we're going to need to make a phone call. Or are you able
Yeah.
to speak with him, or does our office need to call him?" And again, now I can
Well,
see there as a medical provider myself where that's going to get a little hairy, and I don't want to do an extra task. But I think you
yeah.
bring up a really good point.
Well, and that's the other thing. A lot of common language in a court order, for example, like he is supposed to inform me ahead of time of everything, have
Yeah,
discussions, whatever. So when a court order says that, I think a provider assumes, okay, that's happened, or oh, he can lie and whatever, say anything he wants. So even when this provider contacted me, luckily he chose to. Luckily, he took that
nice,
step to
good for
actually make
them.
sure he emailed or whatever, and I had no idea what was going on. And so even on our first phone call, we were both confused because I was confused, and that he's confused, I'm confused, and it's like I was not informed. I do not even know what's happening. And so even that little step, I think, can be
Yeah,
a big game changer because that opened up a whole discussion of, you know, to think I have been alienated for over a year now. He hasn't let me see my son. I'm
I'm so
supposed to.
sorry.
I have the
Mhm.
right, and he isn't. Since he illegally kept him the last time, he's completely cut us off, which I knew it was going that route given the nature of how things were going. Um, and courts did nothing about it. But to know that someone can have that capacity of control and then paint you as, oh well, she abandoned, she's not in our son's life, she's not around. I have messages, can I, I should have a visit, I have the right to choose a date, to whatever it is. Oh no, he doesn't want to see you, he doesn't want to come. And then
Uh,
I've tried reaching out, and my son even said, like, the other day, even last week or whatever, I even will take some my son doesn't reach out a lot, and typically it is adult language. We have proven before they pretend to be him a lot of the time. But you can
mm,
usually see the difference between child and adult language of who it is. Um, I'll take text though, and I'll put it in Chat GPT, and it can give you a whole rundown of the alienation, the disassociation,
oh
the
wow,
like what is happening, the language means such and such. And it's just crazy to see, like, even Chat GPT knows, and the court just sits and does nothing. And it can give a whole spiel, very good explanation of what this is happening. And so my son will be like, I miss you, I love you. Oh, you have to ask dad. Like, he is not
mm,
allowed to want me. He's not allowed to love me. He's not allowed to be happy with me. He's not allowed to ask to see me. All those things, all these years. And it's such common behaviors that happen in these situations, the alienation, where they kind of coach that child or punish that child, where they learned, like, I'm not allowed to love that
yeah,
parent or like show that. And oh,
yep,
it's up to that parent if I can even see you. And it's actually not. They don't have that right, but they make it seem that way. It's
yeah.
such a whole, they take control of everything.
So, I mean, I'm frustrated for you. Um, geez. And again, it begs the question, why? You know, why?
Right.
Only to be in conflict with you. That
Yeah.
there's no other, you know, accessible reason other than to just somehow hurt you and not realizing how much the child in the middle is being
And
hurt.
that's
Um,
and that's the thing. I mean, that's causing so much on the child. He's already shown behaviors over time of things that really worry me of where it's going to continue to go. But it that clearly shows alienation. Someone who is not abiding by court orders, has multiple times illegally kept a child, tries to exclude you from things that you have full rights to. These are all signs. I wish, obviously, these are kind of behind the doors that people don't see in
Yeah.
family situations, but it's even for the medical provider or the school or whoever. I wish these were just more known so you could pinpoint dynamics like this.
You make me think about, you talk about your son being kept, beyond the time that's allowed in your agreement. Um, and I think about being on the losing end of that very battle. Um, how many times, or, it wasn't many times, but at least on a couple of occasions where I had reason to say, no, they're actually not going to go back yet because I'm concerned about something. Man, the police would show up at my door like that, right? Happened a couple times. But if I called and, hey, my kids aren't here for visitation, I don't know where they're at, she's not responding. That's a domestic issue, sir. We can't do anything about it. What? Like what? But
That's what happened to
you've
me,
been to
yeah.
my door. Like,
I don't
what's the
understand
difference?
it.
I
I
mean,
really,
there's a code somewhere we must be missing because it happens across the board. They're looking at something on their paperwork and going up custodial, non-custodial, whatever. Oh yes, sir. Please document it. Well, that's why I'm calling you. Can you make a report? And
well,
then I
and
have to compile that and go to the court and see if the court actually listens to the proof that I've
yeah.
provided, despite the fact that I've been derailed by allegations that non-evidentiary process whatsoever.
And
So
maybe
frustrating.
mine is just because the two different states being involved. Maybe
Yeah.
that's why there's this level of being treated differently or confusion. But, each time he illegally kept my son, I had custody. There's a court order saying I have custody. If you call the cops, oh, well, you have to go back to court. You have to go back to court.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
That's all they do. So and I understand it's like they're saying it's a family law matter, but why, if we already went through court, I have custody, why would I need to go back to court to prove I have custody and
Yeah.
that he illegally is keeping my child? And then court is a long process. You're giving that parent time to withhold the child for months to
Yep.
get to the end of it and say, oh, well, it's already been this long now. They're technically like a resident of that state now. So it blows my mind how awful the system can be.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I really hope for some resolution for your situation. That again,
Well,
where I consider myself pretty fortunate in terms of my progression, but I feel for you in terms of those 2 months that I felt that I experienced initially.
yeah,
It's heart wrenching. It's your mind. You're stuck. Like, what
yeah.
else can you really do or think about, or how else do you function? I actually spent the better part of 2 years, and again, I was fortunate to do this, to be able to do this, but I was just doing consulting work. I left my job because all I wanted to do was find opportunities to see my kids. And at that point, we had a nanny, and much to the other party's chagrin or dismay, the nanny would call me when they were at the park, and I would go to the park, and check them out. I spent 2 years doing that
Well,
before I went back to work full time, just to combat that alienation. Just to make sure that my kids didn't feel abandoned, that they knew what was going on. And then how do you actually explain to them what's going on? Hey,
right,
daddy, how come you keep showing up at random times? Well, because your mom won't let me see you otherwise. Ooh, I probably, that's not
right,
something you want to say.
exactly.
What do they understand? And the court doesn't think about any of that.
Yeah,
I marvel. I'm going to say it, man. Family law judges might be the most, like, just kind of megalomaniacal, like, they just don't get it. It's like they say the most, they're either huge jerks or they say the most beautiful things in harmonious pictures about family, but they didn't read your case. They've already made a decision based on what's on, the history, and now you lose. That's what happened to me.
hmm,
And with my last, custody effort and trying to increase the custody, it was, it's like, Your Honor, I increased to 33% 7, 8 years ago. These allegations are being made. This has been happening for 7 or 8 years, and the other party hasn't cared to bring this up.
Right.
or file a CPS report. I'm married. I have another child. If
Hmm.
I'm this abusive, how come my current wife, isn't complaining about it? How come our 4-year-old is so well adapted and well adjusted? Again, all this evidence sitting right in the
Yeah.
courtroom. My wife is sitting in the courtroom. This judge was, oh, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, I'm like, well, wait a minute. No. And I got a little fiery. And he's like, it didn't matter. I just judge it by the mediator's report anyway. And it's like, well, then that whole speech you just said was BS. Why,
Yeah.
why are you lathering me, man? Like, why are you wasting my time here?
Yeah. Well,
And again, at the end of the day, it was like, oh, so I'm at 33%. I'm asking for 47. You're upholding all these allegations made by the other party, which basically says you're okay with me being drug addicted and abusive 33% of the time around my daughter. It makes absolutely no sense. It's like,
mm-mm.
all right, yeah. They don't
I
listen. It's
It really is. I mean, even with my last case, the judge and my son is old enough where the judge had interviewed him and he
mm,
wanted to be with me. He wanted to live with me, but that case had spurred from abuse on his dad. The school there contacted CPS on him due to
oh,
abuse things my son was saying to them. So it kind of this whole thing happened from it, but and he was founded. Abuse was founded. He's even on the National Abuse
oh
Registry or whatever
man.
it's called from DHS, and he has my son. I mean, the judge even immediately moved my son back here, due to that, and yet then he didn't put any provisions, no supervision, nothing in place, which shocked me because if it's due to that, why wouldn't there be some sort of provision while we're continuing this case? But no, immediately went back to his dad for a full visit, and he came back a completely different child. I mean, the
Mm,
brainwash, the manipulation, his anger, his hurting himself, doing all kinds of things. It was horrible. And
uh,
then the next visit is like he illegally kept him. And so to think you moved him here for due to abuse and he wanted to be here and now it all flipped and he's back with in the, sorry, but with the abuser, and that's where it ended. I mean, it really blows my mind to see cases like this and how it's handled and how evidence is just kind of swept under the rug, and it's just so, I don't even know what needs to specifically change, but something needs to change. And
well,
hopefully even with people in society just being aware more and maybe pinpointing or I
yeah,
mean, because even with providers, like your job as a provider, you're either a therapist, whatever kind of provider you are, you're there for that child. So, and if you have a distorted vision, a distorted picture of the whole scenario, you're actually not helping that child then.
yeah,
It's making it
yeah.
worse. And so,
It needs to be a huge community effort. I think that it's such a paradox because it is a domestic matter, and I think that
yeah,
as private citizens, maybe we're respectful of that, but in this case, that becomes a barrier to actually helping people.
right.
In terms of helping people in dissolution, I think that the law can do a lot better. I think the law needs to change its mindset in terms of a punitive criminal. You did something wrong, so we got involved. No, I didn't do
Hmm.
anything wrong. You had me come get a license for tax purposes in order to get married legally. So I have to come legally to dissolve that agreement. That's the only thing. Nobody's doing anything wrong. But then you get the allegations coming. You get the jockeying for position. There's community property. There's a community business. Oh, now there's money to be made. Is it any surprise that the first thing you do is an income and expense declaration? They get to size you up fully. I've made that joke to the dismay of some of my past attorneys, but I was like, well, how much can you pay? Well, why don't you tell me? You
Yeah,
know it. Oh, because you're trying to be ethical? Okay, whatever.
yeah,
It becomes this weird game. And to your point, it needs to be a much more community based orientation or effort where it's like, hey, that family's in trouble. How as neighbors do we take care of those kids right now?
yeah.
And how do
And
we take
I
care of those
can
two people? How
Yeah.
do we take
And
care of them?
I can definitely understand, like it's awkward, it's uncomfortable
It's
for just
very awkward.
anyone in general, like a neighbor, a friend. I get that, but more so for, I guess, institutions,
Yeah.
places the child goes, the provider, the school, whatever, to be more aware of these things because it's more so for the child's best need, because that child is internally struggling. It could be hidden. You might not easily see it, but this dynamic is not helping a child. This causes trauma. This causes all kinds of future cognitive, physical, everything. There's so
Yeah.
many I can't think of the word, but just
It's a lot
things
of
that happen
parameters,
to the
a lot
child.
of variables. Yeah, no, it
Yes.
is.
And so
I,
how can we prevent that? How can we help that? Who can step in and help that?
it's almost like it's got to be preemptive, right? It's got to be preventative. And maybe your platform here will help with that. But I've always thought, they make you go through, especially if you're getting married through a church, you're going to have some sort of marriage counseling or
Yeah.
some pre-thing, and it's always about how to keep the marriage together better. Really good information, right? I've been through it with my current wife. She's Catholic. I'm not, but she wanted to do it, and it was a wonderful experience. And then it dawned on me: these people had a wonderful experience, as they should have, but nobody talked to us about what happens if it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Why don't we have these classes where, oh, you're about to get married, you want a marriage license? We're going to bring you in and show you an income and expense declaration in case
Hmm.
you want to see what happens if you guys ever want to get divorced. Let's show you. Oh, now let's say you have
Yeah.
kids in the middle. Let's tell you a little bit about supervised visitation. I mean, maybe that would scare people from doing stupid things. I don't know. But you're right. The system could really help solidify. There's so much talk politically right now. I won't get any further than this into that. But this idea
Hmm.
of the destruction of the nuclear family. Again, yeah, we're doing it to ourselves. The family law courts are doing it. We do it to each other. We as people think that we can go to the court and they're going to help us. They're there to ruin things. Very seldom. I mean, seldom, unless it's an amicable parting, seldom do I hear people going, "Oh, yeah, it was a wonderful experience." No, it's
Right.
costly, time-consuming, frustrating. They fan the flames. I've been looking at my case recently because I have to in the current day, and I'm working with an attorney, and she's pointing all these things out, and I'm like, "Oh, those are things that your colleagues left as open, didn't they, in previous cases, so that I would have to come
Yeah.
back?" And short of saying, yes, she just kind of looks at me like, maybe I know a little bit too much for my own good. But family law is like, what's that old Charles Dickens quote? The business of law is to make business for itself. I don't think that's any more true than in family court.
Yeah.
Man, they put
Well,
you through the ringer.
and kind of about the marriage counseling scenario example you gave, I could see court systems being like, oh, well, we have parenting classes in place, we have
Right.
things to help.
Yeah,
But for example, that's just a box to check to me, because
that's it.
so even in our last case, there is complete evidence of abuse, alienation, all these things he's doing. And here we are to the end of it. Oh, well, you need to take this parenting class. And in the parenting class, it even said, like, the first few slides, it was online. So it was these slides, and these videos even explained, if you're dealing with abuse, alienation, da 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 da, like everything it mentioned was my case. And it said, stop right now, this is not for you, because this is for like a normal co-parenting. And I was like,
But you got to check that box.
why? And that's what the lawyers said. They were like, yeah,
Right.
they are just making you check these boxes. I'm like, I have to pay for all this stuff, and you have nothing in place to act. So like, you have this parenting class that even points out these scenarios. What do you have to help those scenarios? Nothing? I mean, because then I'll be like, we have that
They don't.
scenario. Oh, nothing to do
They
about it.
don't. It's
What?
completely generic information. It's brutal. It is just a box to check.
Thank you for listening to You Can't Break Us. If this episode spoke to you, subscribe and leave a review. Every voice matters. Every story counts. If you or someone you know has a story to share, email youcan'tbreakuspodcast@gmail.com to connect with me. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and never stop using your voice. Because no matter what they've tried to take from us, They can't break us.